woman who wrote Avatar the Last Airbender and somehow fumbled when the main character is not only a woman, but a darker skinned woman. You know how to make characterization for a little boy who is pale, but for some reason you have no idea what to do. And then you refuse to hire anybody outside of yourself to help you with this situation, or someone that maybe has the same resemblance to Korra, since y'all felt so attached to Aang when he's not even technically your demographic, because there are no like there are essentially no white people in Avatar the Last Airbender. There's essentially no black people in the Legend of Korra, or not the Legend of Korra, Avatar the Last Airbender, because they're all different variations. The plethora of Asian, like different Asian people that exist in this world, because you only see from King of the Hill, he was saying was Khan Chinese or Japanese. When the first time I ever heard of Laotian people existing ever was on King of the Hill, that's a problem, because why do we not know who Laotian people are? Because we don't ever hear anyone talking about Laotian people. Like more often now, you'll see someone talking about their Filipino, the RuPaul's Drag Race. You'll see someone Filipinos from the Philippines, and you'll see like different variations of the demographic, like a darker skinned Filipino, a lighter skinned Filipino. Like, I knew about Laos because of you, the fire about me. Because you know the fire about me. Oh my goodness. I don't know anything about that. Like, we don't learn enough about different people in history. Like, we barely talked about the Civil War. And when I talked about it with one of my teachers, she's just talk about, oh, I think slavery is atrocity and da 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 da. Like, but you're not going to teach us about the, like, we learned, okay, there's Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. Like, we learned about the white people, but we didn't learn about the black people. And the only black people we learned about were the people that everyone knew about: Martin Luther King Jr., barely anything with Malcolm X, because I learned a lot more about him in my older years than even in high school. Like, we don't learn enough about the people who actually moved mountains for the civil rights movement at all. You have to take a specific class in order to learn stuff like that. You have to take specific classes to learn about Laos. You have to take specific classes to learn about the Vietnam War. Like, there was like 2 seconds about the Vietnam War, and we didn't even talk about our part as an America in the Vietnam War. What, like, why were we in, like, there's a lot, but like, there's a lot to say about the Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I'm gonna first start talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, going down the list of characters and what has happened and what I don't like in this whole situation, and then we can go into the Legend of Korra, because I'm really sick. Let's just do some dishonorable mentions of what I have recently seen on Twitter with these people talking. Like, did we watch different shows? Like, from, oh, Korra's too strong, she's a Mary Sue, everyone loves her, she's so strong, she's too strong, even though she's the Avatar and she should be stronger than every single person ever. Every single person ever, she's the Avatar, goddamn Avatar, what you talking about? To saying that, oh, she's a weakling, she's the weakest Avatar, she's the most useless Avatar at the exact same time. Mind you, these people are saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. The exact same thing at the exact same time. They're saying she's not only weak and puny and good for nothing, and puny, weak, good for nothing loser. At the same time, she's also a Mary Sue. How is she also a Mary Sue? How does that make goddamn sense? It does not. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about people talking about how, oh, Aang didn't die. If that's the truth, then when Azula, I literally could tell you everything, because I've watched Avatar: Last Airbender from beginning to end, middle, sideways, and on. I know everything about Avatar: Last Airbender. You can, like, I'm not gonna take no quiz, but I would pass a quiz. I'm not gonna entertain someone being like, oh yeah, you think a girl can do anything? You think a girl knows about Avatar: Last Airbender? I was watching it live. I was watching it live. That was in my generation. So you can't even test me. I'll test you. Anyway, Aang was killed by Azula. Azula killed the Avatar essentially. And then the best healer in the world and fighter in the world, Katara, aka also the turncoat. She's a turncoat of her own people. They kind of wrote someone who is a person that could actually exist. The funny thing about the fact that Katara is a turncoat is the fact that she could actually be a person, because there's a lot of turncoats in this society, in this world. There's a lot of Black people, Asian people, Hispanic people that Hollywood boisters up only for them to disregard their people, make fun of them, or make fun of other people. Example, Aquafina is a Asian actress who made fun of Black people to get famous, and now she's going to say, well, I don't want to do a trope of my own people because I have too much respect for them. Double slap in the face. Another example, George Lopez, who's one of the darker skinned Hispanic people allowed in Hollywood to even get any amount of screen time ever. He's got his own shows. He's got multiple shows named after him and his family. And he's got a light-skinned wife and a light-skinned daughter who he just throws everywhere because it's so great to have a light-skinned daughter specifically. And it's very interesting because he was even in his own words, not mine. He talked about how his mom would kill him or hate him because he brought home a Black woman. Like, when he is literally one of the darkest skinned Hispanic people I have ever seen in my entire life on the silver screen. Like, these are just examples of turncoats. They are turncoats essentially because they are going against the grain, going against their people and other people as well. If you are against gay people, you are also against Black people because there are Black gay people. Like, you can't just say, well, I'm okay with being Black, but I can't be okay with a gay person. Like, you are either for progress or against it. You can't be like on the fence, straddling fence. You have to figure that out. But with Katara, like I guess I can start with Katara since we're talking about Katara. So Katara is a doozy because no one really understands her. And Avatar, the live action Netflix movie show, whatever crap, she's really terrible because they got a bad actress because they were trying to look for the lightest skin actress they could and still get away with her being there just because she is I think she's indigenous. I do believe she is indigenous. She's of indigenous origin. However, she is light skinned. I would say Korra and Katara, if not my skin, maybe a click lighter than my skin. And it's just not happening. It's just not happening. Katara and Sokka were very, very much so darker than any character in Avatar the Last Airbender. There's probably one or two people who could even compare to their skin tone, and they were not prominent in the show as much as those siblings were. And they just decided to get the lightest skin actress that they could get away with without even her merits were nothing. It's funny how they love to say that they just got the best person for the job when it's a white person, but when it's a Black person or anyone that is not white, they will say that it's just um a diversity hire. They will say that. I did see someone go viral talking about it was a diversity hire for a Black woman to be a pilot. This is 2024. People are legitimately saying this. They legitimately believe this. It's a belief that they have. It's not just trolling. It's not just saying stuff just for clicks and likes. They believe this. They firmly believe this in 2024. So why is it so hard to believe that they just got someone literally without looking at their merits? And the proof is in the pudding. Please go. I will say go watch Netflix. If you've got Netflix, go watch Netflix Avatar the Last Airbender live action, and please tell me, someone who actually watched Avatar the Last Airbender the animated series, tell me, is that Katara? Zuko, the actor who does Zuko, he did a very good job because he actually, in one of his interviews, he actually said he was watching the show. The least you can do is watch the show. The least you can do is look at the source material. A lot of people who are stubborn, one of those actors and actresses who will be like, I don't even look at that. I don't even look at that. I just do it myself. I'm just Like, not only are you a vessel for a story, but you are also taking on the legacy of something that is beloved. And I think it's very interesting, whether you are dark or light or whoever and whatever, if you put that into play, it will help you considerably. Here's an example. Um, I think his name was Lance Riddick. I think he passed away. He played in another live action thing that Netflix did of Resident Evil, which had nothing to do with anything about Resident Evil. It just literally had the name, and then they stole the joy pill from We Happy Few, of the one of the best video games in the world, but it was poorly executed because it was a okay, there's a lot, but whatever. He was a black man playing a white man who people could say he was into like pure genetics. A lot of people say that he was, you know, one of those people, but I personally make an argument that Albert Wesker was not racist in the way that we see it in our society. In the Resident Evil universe, I'm not going to really get into it, but what I will say is Lance Riddick, who played Wesker, a man who was bald, mind you, a black man who was bald, was really renowned. People were kind of confused as to how well he did the role. And I don't know if he looked at the rendition of Wesker, but it just seemed like he actually did his homework. And we can't ask him because he passed away. Maybe we can look at some of the interviews he did before he passed away, but people were really confused and shocked that he actually did something good with Albert Wesker, despite having literally complete opposite. Albert Wesker is white with blonde hair. They got a black man who was bald, and then they added his hair and gave him glasses at the end of that show. It was pretty atrocious and it made me sick, but he still seemed like he understood the character, and he kind of added a little bit of himself into it as well. There's a lot of things that you could do, like the Grinch. Jim Carrey, he added something that made his character, but a lot of people who can't do that. Jim Carrey, he's literally like one of the best people in Hollywood, one of the best people in Hollywood, not personality wise and not politically, by no means. Like, look up his political stance. Like, you'll be very shocked to know how he is. But I guess Ace Ventura probably guessed, get like it, whatever. All I know is his craft is unmatched. Like, he's one of the best people in Hollywood. Um, but he made the Grinch something, and maybe he didn't do his, like, we don't know if he did his research or not. I don't really look up, but all I know is when you do your research, it's a lot easier to do a character. Going back to what I was talking about, Katara, one of the worst, like, if that's the best acting she's got, please stay out of Hollywood. And this is just the honest truth. I can't tell you, oh, you did so well, you did so good. You did horribly. You need to go back to the drawing board. More than anyone on this earth, you were the worst person in the show. That was horrible and atrocious. I don't know what the director did. I don't know if they cut out your good parts, but that is not Katara. People have a very misconstrued understanding of who Katara is, and I suggest you watch the show, and maybe you need to do a little more than watch the show. You need to have someone actually baby feed you this information, because a lot of people are under the assumption that Katara was just this swooning, wailing widow who did nothing, and she just so happened to beat patriarchy, like, and then she was done doing anything. And like I said, she is a very much so a turncoat, but she was also a child in war. She is very broken. No wonder she turned coat against her own people. Yes, her own people. Hama was her own people. And she made her be arrested for the rest of her life after she's already endured concentration camp type teas. She was locked up with barely any food and barely any water. And they cut out the parts that would actually make this akin to reality, like sexual assault that would happen to her. They didn't say that happened to her, but that is implied because that is what happens during war. And they're going to let her get locked up away after all those years being in there, and her finally escaping after using a bending technique that she would have never opened up to her mind if not for the fact she was locked up. Yes, Katara is a turncoat. I really want to drive that home before I start talking about her because I'm going to do a lot of defending of Katara and her character. She made mistakes, but a lot of the time, a lot of people kind of make every time I see a stupid oh, who do you like better or who's the best what, they pick Katara last. Who do you want to go to the carnival with? And Katara is always picked last because you guys don't understand Katara. She was she was fighting against the patriarchy alone. Alone. Toph didn't come till later, and Toph and Katara were not like best friends when they first met. They were actually butting heads like crazy because Toph was a tomboy who got along more with the boys, isolating Katara more. Already like the fandom that claims to like this show, when you give more grace to the little boy, who I'm not saying it's his fault. And that's another thing that I saw. A lot of people were blaming Aang for genocide. I blame Aang for not killing the man who was continuing the legacy of genocide. I do. But I don't blame him for the genocide happening. That was Avatar Roku's fault, and he admits it in the show that y'all claim to have seen. People are literally giving you scenes. You are literally saying crap that is contrary to the actual scenes that you are referring to. People are saying Aang is the one that's at fault, defending Korra for people saying that Korra's weak. It's a lot of Aang versus Korra situation. When, yeah, we can do the who's better avatar, whatnot, but we can only say definitively that we've seen Aang grow. We've seen Korra grow, but Korra was older than Aang. So a lot of people are giving grace to Aang because he's younger, because he was also over 100 years old technically. But going back to Katara, she isn't just a motherly role. That is what they give to her. And there's nothing wrong with being motherly. Mothers are strong. But what I'm saying, socially, people don't believe in mother strength. They just don't. They see father strength, mother nurturing. That is what it is in society. That's not my take on it, but that is what society has in store. All right. But she was also strong. She was fighting against pirates. She like there was a lot that y'all are kind of taking out, and taking all that away, and you have the Katara that we have in the live action. This nothing burger of a nothing character who is surrounded by boys who don't take her seriously. And then you completely literally decimate the character that was Suki so that she can be a simp. When y'all hate men simps and boy simps, you would rather die than see a boy simp, but you are fine with Suki simping over Sokka over nothing. She even critiques him like, if you are the protector of your people, why are you here? He has no real explanation for that. He has no real explanation for that situation. And then she likes him. She beats him and then she likes him. What does she like about him? The only thing we can see that she likes about him is his body. So sexualizing Sokka to make this girl be a simp for what? For what? Stupid, dumb, ridiculous. But like Katara is such a cool character aside from the fact that she's a turncoat from her on her own people. She will help people in need. She was helping people in need, but then can't seem to understand someone who was taken from her people. We can go into how colorism and misogyny, basically misogynoir, even though she's not black. It's just colorism because literally lighter skinned characters are given more grace. Here's an example. Zuko and Jet. Jet was darker skinned, clearly. Clearly, Jet is darker skinned than everyone else. Very comparable to Katara and Sokka. But Jet, everyone's like, yeah, Jet was bad. Jet was trying to hurt. Oh, he was trying to hurt this. Oh, Poor little old man, that's a colonizer that took your home, that took your place. Poor all these people who have displaced you, and that's over now. No one saw the displacement, but they see the colonizers and the settlers. They see them settlers. They call them settlers because settlers is something that sounds like, oh, we just settled here. We didn't lift a finger to do anything. We just settled here. When in actuality, no, you didn't just settle here. You took somebody's home, and no one wants to talk about that. But for some reason, Jet, a person who was affected by war, someone who lost his parents to war and fire, gets a far less grace, and then he deserves to die by the main creators of the show. He was by design set and destined to die because he had too much anger in him. He couldn't be saved. He couldn't be saved. And what did he need saving from? Being upset that his family died. Being upset that there were colonizers in his home. While, on the other hand, Zuko, a lighter-skinned individual, clearly lighter-skinned individual, imperialist, he is an imperialist. Because he becomes the new Fire Lord. If he wanted to actually do some good, he would have abolished the whole Fire Lord situation. He should have. Instead of telling, oh, Aang, if I be as bad as my daddy, he'd kill me. That's what he said in the comic. Try me. Come test me. Instead of saying that to Aang when he knew clearly good and well that Aang would never kill him. He knew good and well Aang would never kill him. He didn't kill his father, who was one of the people who continued to like, he knew it was not going to happen, so he just said that, made it that so that I feel better about being Fire Lord. I feel so much better about being Fire Lord now. For what? For no reason, because why do you feel better about being goddamn Fire Lord? Abolish it. Abolish it. You've got the power, but you won't because you would rather have power. You would rather have power, and you got to admit that. He is redeemable. This man is redeemable even though he's continuing the same cycle. It doesn't matter. And in the comic, it talks about how the colonization situation happens. Too whittle, too wait. You should have did that in the show. I don't care about no goddamn comic. I don't. I'm not reading that comic. I only know about the comic because I've seen people talk about the comic. I'm not reading that comic. I watched the show, and I'm not going to not watch the show. Sorry, I forgot to say spoilers. I'm sorry, I forgot to say spoilers. This is a spoiler for Avatar the Last Airbender. Every rendition of it, including M. Night Shyamalan's garbage, I really, really, really want to meet him. I really have to understand, like, bro, what made you think this was okay? I literally have to ask him, what made you think this is okay? What made you think that you could make the bad guys who have never been dark-skinned Asian people? And then if he tells me, well, I am dark-skinned Asian, because Indian is Asian, dark-skinned Asian, and I love the Fire Nation, and I just wanted them to be Fire Nation. How about that? If he said that to me, I'd be like, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, babes. But explain how you're making all of everybody else who is supposed to be Inuit and who's supposed to be indigenous, freaking goddamn white people. You can't explain that. You can't, because you're not white. You can't say, well, I'm white, so I'm like you. That would be one example of something that you could possibly say in an alternate universe when I'm stupid and I don't understand anything. Maybe you could do that. But there's no reason for M. Night Shyamalan to have done anything he did in that crap. He just wanted to make money off of a name. That's all he wanted. He had like 6 people stomp in the yard and then 1 rock flying across the screen. Sick. That was supposed to be fire. That was supposed to be earthbending. That was supposed to be earthbending. And then firebending couldn't happen unless the fire was there. Like, they couldn't materialize fire, even though, like, you just need oxygen for fire to keep going. So technically, as long as there's oxygen somewhere, they could firebend. But that's whatever. That's on whatever. Regardless, through and through, a Netflix version of Katara is sick. The version of Katara that is in the live action Netflix show is basically the one that y'all are looking at, when she never existed till then. The Katara that's in the show is the cartoon turncoat. We can get that out of the way. She's a turncoat against her own people. She was motherly to the people, but not like, "Oh, let me get you some milk," all, but, like, she was just like she pushed them to their limit. She got them out of the desert. Without her, no one would have gotten out of the desert. Aang was going through a depression. Sokka was high out of his mind. Funny enough, he gets to be high. He gets to just be high, Mister, "I'm protecting my people," and, yeah, you could be like, "Well, he only said that in the live act." He didn't actually. He actually said that in the cartoon too, but he left, and he wanted to leave. In the live action, it makes it seem like he didn't wanna go, and then he wants to leave after that. It's like, it kinda goes back and forth with what, like, they're just not consistent. They're stupid dumb. But we could talk about Sokka next since I'm talking about Sokka, but it's funny how he gets to be all high and be the butt of the joke and stuff, and then all of a sudden, he gets to like, man armies and stuff at the end of the show. Like, it's funny. It's like, okay, whatever. It's like he can we've been setting him up to be a hero, and it's like he did all that sword training just to not use the sword. That was a little strange to me, but no one talks about that. Everyone talks about how they like to hyper analyze the female characters of every single show just to eventually say at the end of it all they were a bad character. And instead of saying that the person who made them is horrible and ridiculous, unless it's a girl, because definitely if it's a girl, just like Steven Universe, like they don't look at the characters like, okay, these are characters and I hate them. They're like, okay, Rebecca Sugar, she did this and she's horrible and she does this and this is the like it's very funny how y'all will go to the writer when they're a woman, but when it's a guy, he can do no wrong. And all of the mistakes that he has, oh, the mistakes actually make the show good. And I'm not going to say who I may say it. I may say it. I may hint at who I'm talking about, but just know that like there's a famous author who every time, even if he makes a mistake, it's like, oh, that's all according to his plan. Like no accountability, zero accountability. And the only accountability he gets is the fact that he didn't finish a book or whatever. That gives away who I'm talking about. But like I said, Sokka is he's like the comedic relief. He was very good at being comedic relief and getting serious on a dime. And that wasn't the problem I had with Sokka in the show. I really didn't have much problem with Sokka in the show, except the fact that they made it seem like he was more a part of Team Avatar than Suki. When at the end there was a whole thing of where who everybody was and all that, like what they Team Avatar, the ultimate Team Avatar had Suki in it. Okay, I'm not even arguing with anybody. Suki, the original hashtag my real Suki from the cartoon, OG Suki, is the Suki. She was strong. There were a lot of strong women on the show who didn't just have to be healers. And this is the thing about Katara. Let me talk about this real quick. Katara literally didn't want to just be a healer. She didn't mind being a healer. She was good at healing, but she wanted to fight in the war that took her mother away. Simple. And then when she was done fighting, what you want her to keep fighting? Just because girls put down the sword, like it's ridiculous how men get to retire and be seen as a great man and get all these medals of honor and get things named after them. But the moment Katara puts her weapon down, she's seen as some woman who gave up, some weak-willed woman who gave up, who didn't fight till her dying breath. Why do women have to fight for their till their dying breath in order to get any respect for being strong? But men can retire and be fine. I don't understand that. That's another thing that people were saying on Twitter, talking about how, oh, Katara, funny how she turned into a healer when she didn't want to be. It's not that she didn't want to be a healer. It's that she wanted to fight in the war that took her mother. That's very simple and very easy to understand. I don't know why y'all are saying that. And then we can talk about Toph real quick. Cause like I said, Sokka, there wasn't enough crap in the Legend of Korra for me to even talk about Sokka, except the fact that he had a child with Toph. And then we can talk about Toph right into there. Boom. Literally illegitimate child with Sokka, because she likes Sokka, she likes Zuko. She was kind of liking on all the guys. She was kind of liking on all the guys, and that's fine because she should be able to do whatever she wants. Like she should be able to exist in this world. But I loved Toph. Toph was so cool. Another thing that people were talking about, stupid idiots. Idiots. When I'm telling you idiots, when I'm talking about idiots, I'm talking about loser scrub bums who were talking about, they're talking about how people who are disabled don't belong in fantasy. And I'm like, so first of all, there's like 6 people who are disabled in The Legend of Korra and Avatar. Just I can think of on top of my head, blind, um, wheelchair bound. They had different functions, glasses, people wearing glasses. Harry Potter wore glasses. The f are you talking about? What are you like? Literally, you are literally just saying nonsense. You are literally saying nonsense. Toph is blind. She's disabled. Just because there's magic in her world doesn't mean that they can will her eyesight. And even if someone could will them eyesight, like even in American Horror Story, when someone went blind, they had to take the eyesight of someone else. So it's not just as easy as willing eyeballs into someone's sockets. There is space for Black people. There is space for Asian people, both light and dark skinned. There is space for white people. There is space for Hispanic people because some of y'all like to forget about Hispanic people. There is space for every single person you can think of, disabled or not, trans or not, in a magical world. Very easy. If you can create a situation where there's dragons and stuff, you can create a situation where women are strong too. I know that's very hard for some incels to understand. But like that for y'all to be talking about how there's no space for and then literally what you're talking about is literally the avatar, like, and you're gonna act like Toph don't exist. You want to act like I don't understand. I don't know. I don't even care. I don't even care. I'm not even gonna say it no more. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, it is what it is. That's dumbs. Toph was cool, and yes, her being a police officer in now times, Legend of Korra times or whatever, that makes sense. That makes sense completely. And people saying, "Oh, I can't believe that you would say that. That don't make no sense." It makes complete sense to me. If you watch the shows, I'm starting to think a lot of people didn't watch the show. I'm starting to think they just said that they watched the show and they watched one episode and they got bored or something. But like the way y'all saying stuff, it just don't sound like you watched it a day in your life because Toph had no structure in her life. For her to become someone who is like, well, yeah, I get to control what happens, especially since she was a child who was within the war. You think that she thinks just like she's very powerful. Why wouldn't someone with power and who was on the right side of history not all of a sudden think that they are the arbiter of who gets to walk the streets freely and not? She also was the only person there with the last name Beifong. She was wealthy. What is wrong with you? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Regardless, Toph, to me, I liked Toph. Toph was cool. I kind of didn't like the fact that they were putting girl against girl. It would have been nice to see the girls get along, but it's usually what they do in animation, and this is what made it cool at the time. Is when the girls are together, it's like girls versus guys always. From I Love Lucy black and white days to the 2000s. That is the archetypes that we get. We get the men versus women, and it's really getting old. It was old when I Love Lucy was doing it, to me, in my personal opinion. It was just disgusting. The way that they were like, oh yeah, women don't do nothing all day. You just eat bonbons and watch TV, and then they actually have to do stuff, and then they actually have to go to work. They're like, oh no, 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 no. Oh, and it turns out everything was fine. Turns out I'll respect you. And then at the end of the episode, they still don't like their wives. They still don't care about women. Like at the end, it's all back to where it was. What's the point? Stop. So when Katara and Toph got into an argument, it kind of was more like the guys were still banding together and the girls were fighting. It usually isn't the guys are fighting, except I could say that that's not true because Naruto, the guys were fighting. But there are some aspects in which the guys are fighting, but they're not together. Like Shishomaru and Inuyasha are like half siblings, and they fought, but he was never a part of Team Inuyasha. And y'all know who I'm talking about if you watch that anime. But there's just most of the time when the guys are arguing, it's because they're not in a group together. Like, it's because they're like, they just have to work together for certain situations, or they have to be in the vicinity of each other, or they're fighting. But it's not like they're interloped in this group, if you get what I'm saying. Like, Aang, I can't even talk about Aang without getting angry, because y'all give Aang so much grace and y'all curse people out on Twitter because people blame Aang. And whether they blame Aang or not, I really don't care. I don't care. It's not that big of a deal to me. It's more of a big deal to me that y'all are acting like Korra is weak yet strong at the same time, and arguing about how she's a Mary Sue, but she's also the weakest avatar in the world, which those two things cannot be the same. Those two things cannot live and exist in the same realm without you being stupid. That doesn't make any sense to me. But you give Aang's far more grace. Oh, he was just but a wee one. He was just but a wee one. And I feel like if he was a grown man, y'all would still give him grace. Like, y'all just give more grace to men and boys. That's all you do. That's why it's like the whole thing with Katara and Sokka. It was super annoying to me because while Katara had more characterization than Sokka, I really do feel like that. I could say from beginning to end, I think Katara was more like, because she was the love interest of Aang, and Aang's the main character. Sokka was more of a side character than Katara was. And but they made her say stupid stuff like, "Oh, you don't understand. She was my mother," and da 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 to him when he's like, "Oh, I can't believe." She's like, "Well, I guess you didn't love her as much as I did." When, yes, that's a stupid thing to say, but she's a child. You give her less grace even though she's a child, but you give Aang more grace because he's a child. See how that doesn't make any sense? So the Legend of Korra, I don't know how many years after Aang died when Korra situations happens, but it's a while. It's a while. Everybody's like, okay, all the air nomads are dead except what's it called? Tenzin. Tenzin is the son of Aang and Katara. They had 3 kids. Tenzin, I think her name's Kira, if I'm not mistaken. She's a waterbender. And Bumi, who has nothing, which makes no sense because Aang was the Avatar, so he had some strong, like, if anything, he would have had 2 airbenders and 1 waterbender. It would have made more sense to have at least a waterbender than a nothing bender. But whatever, right? Whatever. Even though in the comic or in whatever they made, with what they were going to do was show Aang's parents, they were both airbenders, air nomads. And whether or not they actually could bend it, because you can be born in the air nomads, you can be born into the air nomads and not have airbending, I guess. But it just seems to me that everybody in their generation had something. And maybe it's because Katara's mom was not a waterbender. She was not. And she died because she said she was. And they didn't ask her to prove it before they probably assaulted her and killed her. But I guess you could say Bumi got that from the fact that Katara's mom and father had no bending ability because her father didn't either. And so her grandma didn't either. So you could say that Bumi came from her. But like I said, Aang is the Avatar. You would think he would have something, but Bumi has nothing until, spoiler alert, later when a lot of magic happens and then all of a sudden air nomads are back into play. When, yes, one could say that that makes sense, and I personally didn't like it. I personally felt like that took away from the fact that genocide takes from people's cultures. It kind of was like, oh, well, even though genocide happened, we just magicked more airbenders into the world. That was one of the biggest mistakes of the Legend of Korra, bringing back airbending through magic. And it was definitely magic. It was spirit stuff that like was very bad, very poorly executed. I can't see a good outcome ever coming from bringing back a culture that was destroyed by genocide when that can't happen in real life. And one could be like, oh, you just da 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 da. When do you want escapism? You can't be talking about escapism when your main focus of the show that you are sequelizing had to do with someone's genocide. You cannot. You simply cannot. That's why I didn't understand how Merlin, the TV show, was supposed to be for kids and everyone, like, especially, like, they were trying to take the blood, gore, and sex and everything out of the show. It made it very bland, it made it very dumb, it didn't make no sense, and then even though genocide was happening, every episode, we're supposed to think that keeping Uther alive is better than killing him instantly, when he's continuously still killing people and persecuting innocent people for something they can't change. But Republic City is the main focus of the show, and Tenzin is helping the new Avatar learn airbending because she can't really do it, because like each bender of the time has a problem with whatever the opposite of their thing is or whatever. And instead of being not adept in fire, she was really good in fire. In fact, she used it more than her water bending. And like, I don't necessarily understand why the people did that. I think it's because they thought that if she was super good in water bending, it would kind of be like Katara 2.0, I would say. But I understand why. I understand. I completely understand why they gave her fire, because I don't know. And another thing is that they don't really help the fact that she was treated so poorly by the fandom. I want you to type in The Legend of Korra in YouTube and show me how many people are just dogging on her and dogging on that show. Like, there's a lot of things wrong with it, and I will explain it. And I'll explain it until an hour. We're at 47 right now. I will explain. I'll do my best, but so Korra's the new Avatar, and you have to deal with it. That's basically the first thing we hear from her. She's a little kid, and she's not master. And here's another thing that people love to say: "Oh, she mastered the elements." Aang didn't master the elements. Aang learned the elements. Um, you can learn how to do anything. You can learn how to make eggs, but do you master making eggs? Like, honestly, like Aang never mastered the four elements, because if he did, he would have done metal bending, he would have done blood bending, he would have done all of the things that have to do with all of the bending styles. Funny that they call it master of the four elements when it's kind of just a learner of four elements. He has the ability to learn the elements and master them. That does not make a master. Korra did not master all four elements or three elements that she did when she was a child. This is the first thing that people will tell you when they say that she is a Mary Sue, which is still a lie. Because when she was a child, she was maneuvering a rock and some water and some flames. That's not mastering. That's literally just a demonstration. So that goes out the window. That goes out the goddamn window. So her parents are from the water tribe, and she obviously knows Katara. And I don't know how strange it is to be married and have kids with someone and then see them as another person in another life. That's kind of surreal. That's so sad. But she knows Katara. She was like, oh, she's so powerful. She's so strong. She's like, you can go to Republic City, do this, that, and the other. She gets to Republic City, and it's funny how she doesn't have any stability. She kind of just walks in there, and like, people are like, oh, everyone loves her. She literally gets stopped by the police and arrested like her first day in Republic City. So that's really funny how people love to talk about how beloved she is when she literally isn't. Not even in the first season. So that goes out the window of being a Mary Sue as well. And she gets arrested by Toph's daughter, one of Toph's daughters. Lin Bei Fong, I don't know. I can't remember what their names are because I did not like The Legend of Korra. Literally, she gets arrested by Toph's daughter, and she's like, oh my goodness, you're Toph's daughter. Oh my gosh. And she's like, oh, just because you're Avatar doesn't mean I'm going to treat you like a... And then craziest thing is she had a relationship with Tenzin before he got with Hama, his wife, who he's got like 3 or 4 kids with. He will not stop having babies because I guess it's his job to make the air nomads all over again, which should have been his job. Okay? Like, I'm not saying what should have been his job, like, oh, once it's just 2 people, they need to like like, have whatever happen, okay, dude? Whatever. We try to preserve, we try to keep things, but, like, if we can't, that it is what it is, time's gonna go on, and it's like, okay. But making just a bunch of people become air people was horrible. That was the one of the worst things they ever did on that show. Here's another one of the worst things they've ever did. The love triangle. This is what I talked about in my video. The love triangle is the biggest thing that I talked about because it's the worst thing in the show. You should have started with Korra liking Asami. She should have been her girlfriend the entire time. No on and off again nonsense. Stop with this on and off again. I don't want to hear that. If I wanted to hear an on and off again like show crap garbage, I would look at anything else in the universe. Look at Friends. This is not Friends. This is Avatar driven. All right. So get that crap garbage out of my goddamn show. Thanks. The love triangle was garbage. Why did they do that? Why are two grown, whole grown men making this show with a girl liking a boy who is the brother of another boy who she kisses, and then the boy sees it? So she meets these two guys who are street urchins and are homeless, and their parents died, and they've been on the street, and they've been in gangs, and they've been in stuff, but they know their grandma. They know their grandma. They know their grandma, though. We learned that they know their grandma. Well, they know their grandma now. Regardless, she's alive. You did not have to be on the streets. But then it's like, okay, they didn't know she was alive. Whatever. I don't care. I don't care. That whole crap, the whole show makes me sick. I told you, The Legend of Korra is putrid, but it's not Korra's fault. It's the two grown men who made the show. No one's talking about that. Y'all talk about D&D when it comes to Game of Thrones. Y'all know whose fault that is. And you give it grace because you have more respect for George R. R. Martin than you do for Dumb and Dumber. But you're not going to go to Dumb and Dumber, the actual people against Avatar Last Airbender, who made Avatar Last Airbender, made The Legend of Korra, and they couldn't make no love triangle actually work. When I don't care about love triangles, I hate them. They make me sick unless the love triangle is going to result in actual, like, I don't know, throuple situation. There is really nothing you can do to it that we haven't already seen 10 billion trillion gazillion times. So she meets Mako and Bolin. Mako and Bolin. Bolin is an earthbender. Mako is a firebender. He is a moody firebender who is gross and doesn't like Korra. This is what happens. So Korra likes Bolin because they are interested in the same things. They actually have more in common than Mako and Korra. They are just two good-looking people. They don't even like each other for anything that they like. They don't even enjoy the same things. Bolin and Korra are a better match because they actually enjoy things and they're actually friends. Mako and Korra have nothing in common, but she ends up kissing him because he looks good. That's it. And they're supposed to be older than Avatar the Last Airbender kids, so why are they making these stupid, dumb mistakes? But anyway, she kisses Mako, and then Bolin is sitting there with flowers, and he's sad, and he cries, and he runs away, and he's supposed to be the comedic relief character, and a lot of his comedic relief is him being the butt of joke, and even though Sokka was the butt of joke, he just did it. He had more charisma. He had more charisma. He simply has more charisma. Bolin does not. He never had more charisma. I never liked Bolin. Bolin never grew on me. I don't know who likes Bolin. I have no idea. But I don't like Bolin, and I don't like Mako. Mako's a moody loser brat who had the Avatar as his, like, he's okay. We're supposed to be under the impression that these two boys who act like they are very sheltered. Bolin acts very sheltered for being a sea urchin who was raised on the streets by his older brother. He acts very childish for someone who was on the streets. And yes, you can say that he maintained his, like, he was traumatized and he maintained his age or whatever he was traumatized in. But Mako is different. He's moody and gross, and I don't know why Korra likes him. He gets ran over by a girl named Asami, who somehow looks very European for something that's supposed to be Asian driven. And she's wearing makeup and stuff, and she's literally the complete opposite of Korra. Korra doesn't wear makeup. She's muscular. She's like strong physically. And but I'm gonna go soon. I've got 4 minutes. I told you I was gonna be done at an hour. So I got 4 minutes left to talk about everything I have to say. So Asami is someone who's rich, and her daddy is rich, and he runs a industrial industry that's corrupt, and that would have worked really well. That could have worked really well. When he got hit by the girl, instead of liking her just because she's wearing makeup, because at this point he likes, like I said in my video, it makes no sense that he likes dark-skinned Korra, who's muscular and strong in that sense and has different, like, they just are two different people. And yeah, I understand how Korra and Asami are together, but I don't understand how Mako and Asami, or Korra and Mako, ever happened. But the whole thing about it is the fact that he doesn't milk this. He is supposed to be a guy who is living on the streets, Aladdin style. And he doesn't take advantage of Asami and say, "Oh my goodness, my back! I can't believe you ran me over. I'm going to sue you. I know the Avatar." Make him uh uh someone who they did that later. They did that later, and then they made it seem like Mako was a person who did that when he met the little boy who did stuff like that. Aladdin. What he wanted to be, what they should have done, was put Mako and Bolin's character together. Did not make him no earthbender. Do the earthbender thing later. That's literally what they did in the last one. If you really wanted to make a sequel to the Avatar Last Airbender, just don't have no earthbender there at all. Have a firebender who has a mixture of comedic relief and seriousness, and have him get run over by Asami and have him milk it to threaten him with the Avatar, and have Korra have to decide whether she's going to stick by this sea urchins or if she's going to stick by Asami, the person that she likes. I can write your stuff for you, but I gotta be on the payroll, son. Gotta be on the payroll, son. That would have been better than, okay, so this is what happens. So Asami runs him over. He's like, "Hey, watch where you're going." And then he sees that she's pale and pretty, and he falls head over heels of her. He dates her, dates Korra at the same time, dates Korra, dates Asami at the same time. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I'm juggling these two girls, and it's ridiculous. All while Bolin is not even in the picture anymore. He's talking to another girl named Opal, who is the daughter of one of Toph's other kids, who people assumed was Sokka's child, even though none of them do waterbending, which would have been really interesting if Lin was actually a waterbender, not an earthbender. Not Lin, but you know what I mean. Whichever one. I don't know if it's Lin or whatever. I don't know their name. Like I said, I don't know if there's two sisters. All I remember is there's the police officer sister and the girl who's free thinking sister. And that would have been cool if she was actually waterbender, because that would have made sense with her personality. Y'all forgot that these people come from different bending places and styles and whatnot. And I'm kind of done. I'm done. I can't even talk about it no more. I'm done. Done. If you like Legend of Korra, please let me know what you thought. What do you think of Avatar the Last Airbender? Do you think Katara's a turncoat? She clearly is. But if you don't, please let me know. We can talk about it in the comments. Subscribe, like, share. Done.